Hey, best friend. I am here today with a very special guest. She does so many things in my life. You honestly wouldn't really even know if you didn't know, but you're about to know, which is the Taylor Aponte. Functions as an assistant, a marketing person, a uh, what is broken and how can I fix it? Um, you need some coffee, let me go do that. Taylor functions in many, many roles. And one of the things that I really love, honor, appreciate about Taylor is that she's like, all right, I want to keep growing. What are the things that I can do to keep growing? I want to keep growing. I want to figure it out. Like, that is constant Taylor. It's probably one of the reasons that my heart connects with her. And I know you're going to connect with her also. And I'm actually really excited that she's on this because what I'm alluding to is that the Taylor did a breakthrough session with yours truly. And so, y'all have heard about my experience doing one myself episodes ago, but I thought it would be really important to just hear somebody else's perspective. I just want to say how excited I am to just talk with somebody about what this experience is like, and I have some questions for her. Like, we prepped a little bit for this to make sure that it made sense to all of you wonderful people listening to us have conversation. But I also have some questions for her that I did not put on the list. So you're going to get a completely kind of like what just comes right out of her head. So, Taylor, again, excited that you're here doing this with me. Here's Taylor. So let me ask her a question. We're sharing a mic, so it's going to be like this fun passing back and forth. Because my husband wasn't around to help me hook up two mics. This is a real life story. We can judge me later. So, Taylor, can you just talk about your reasons for doing a breakthrough session?
Yes. So ultimately, I am sick and tired. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. There was this constant war going on inside of me of I love to grow, so I know better. Why is this still coming up? I know that I'm valuable. I know that I know these things, yet I'm self-doubting.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you really quick. That is a sign of baggage. That is a sign of baggage when you're like, I know the thing to do. Why can I not do the thing? And then you're mean to yourself about it because you're like, I freaking know better.
Yep.
What is wrong with me? Keep going.
Yep. So my self-talk was definitely in the toilet, probably in the sewer below the ground. And it was taking up a lot of mental capacity, a lot of time, a lot of mental, emotional, and physical energy to just constantly battle these things that I honestly at the time didn't know where it was even coming from. I know better. I've done the thing. I've healed from that. Why is that even there still? Like, I've gone to counseling and I've done the things and I've even done coaching. Like, this makes no sense. And I looked at Brittany one day and I'm like, I don't know why this is happening. We were talking about some project that we were working on while she was out of town. And I told her, this bothered me for some reason, but it didn't really bother me. Like, I knew why you were saying what you were saying. I knew where we were going. I knew the goal. And in the back of my mind, I just kept hearing, you didn't do good enough. You're not good enough.
So I can actually remember this situation. So something about me is I can okay, I'm very warm and very loving, but also when I'm focused on business, whatever the quote unquote business is, I'm like task focused. So I'm like, cool. All right. So let me give you some feedback on whatever it is. And I'm not a jerk, by the way. I'm just like very straight to the point. And Taylor's like, no, you're not a jerk, and very straight to the point. And I was like, okay, I like these things, but I also didn't like this. Like, this didn't look and someone, by the way, it's really hard for someone to create something that you're imagining in your head when you're like, I kind of think that this is what I want it to look like, but they show you a thing and you're like, yeah, that ain't it. And someone spent a lot of time working on that, which is exactly what Taylor did. And it was like, okay, I'm not good enough.
Right. And so I was telling Brittany about that, and I said, I know that you meant nothing by this, and I'm not mad at you, and I don't know why this is playing in the back of my head. And she goes, that's an old record that you need to get rid of. When's your breakthrough session? It's like, okay, there we go.
And by the way, we were working on things for breakthrough sessions, so it was like kind of, just perfect, I guess. And she could hear it from me though, because she knows that I love her. And I think, best friend, like we need to have people in our life that we know that when they tell us the truth, that they're telling us because they love us, not because they're trying to be mean to us or harm us. I'm not saying other people don't ever have ill intent. My point is we need to have people in our life that are like that. And I did that with Taylor, and I was like, yeah, like that's baggage. And I apologize for, like, I owned, hey, I didn't mean to come off that way. That would have been my intent. And she knew that. She knew that. That was a big piece of that. She knew that because she knows me. But it was like the thing that was playing in her. And we all have those things. And that's baggage. So keep going. Why else did you choose to do a breakthrough session?
So at this point, you're the problem, you're not measuring up, you need to go away and fix yourself and then come back and then try again to bring value. It was bleeding into my physical health, my emotional health, my relationships with my children, because we homeschool too. I had little to no patience with them, which is not how I want to be. I just simply was not showing up the way that I wanted to show up, and I couldn't figure out why. And the more I tried to figure it out, and her husband has a phrase of like muscling it, when you're trying to just suck it up and get the job done. The more I did that, the more frustrated I got, the more masculine I got, the more uninterested in having intimacy with my husband I got. So it was bleeding into everything that I was doing. And when it started bleeding into my job, that was when I just really had it. When she looked at me and she was like, you need to do a breakthrough session. This is baggage. I received it because it was a huge red flag to me of the one area I've never had issues was doing my job. It was like the one area where everything could just turn off and we just get it done. And it reinforced I did something and I produced something, so I'm valuable. And then that was broken. And I was like, okay, we have to do something different.
Did you hear that, old baggage? I did something. I'm good. Now I'm valuable. That's baggage. And so many people have these sorts of thoughts, and like no judgment. Like literally no judgment. And yet you are likely have some things holding that, like, if I do this, then I'll have love. Yeah, we all have that kind of stuff. I know I did.
Yep. And I will say one of the things that made me really comfortable and confident in doing this with Dr. Britt was because what you hear and what you see is what you get. So I knew that. I knew that. And I knew she would not be telling me these things if she did not care, for one. And two, if she didn't believe, even if I didn't believe, she believed that there was a massive breakthrough waiting for me to happen, and that she could help me get to where I knew I wanted to be. So we booked.
Yeah, so we booked because you were the phrase sick and tired of being sick and tired. That was my girl, Taylor. So, Taylor, can you talk about the prep process for what you did to even get ready for the breakthrough, what I had you do? Go.
Yes. So she had me read this book, Mental Emotional Release. And knowing her, she's a reader, she's a learner, she's a grower. And like, okay, well, she's asking me to read the book. It's for a reason. People who don't know what they're talking about and don't want you to be prepared and just want to take your money, they're not going to give you a resource to help you prepare yourself for all that you're going to get. So she gave me this resource. I'm reading it, and it goes through what it is, why, the process of it, and it's very detailed. So I remember being surprised as I was reading this book, all the things that were already coming up, these things that I was remembering that I guess I had done a super great job at the time of disassociating from. And I took note of those things and I said, hey, before we get started, is this normal that stuff would come up before we even start? It's like, I'm not surprised. So I'm recalling all these things. I can see kind of how they're connected to how I feel currently, but not really. Just like, okay, well, I guess we just put that in the suitcase kind of situation. So I'm a certainty person. So I was really interested in the process of what I was about to go through because I'll be honest, I was a little nervous as to what could come up. Um, it's one of those things of how much did I really disassociate and how messed up am I really? So that book really helped me understand like I'm here because I struggle with who I am and believing that I am lovable.
So something too to even think about that's really important about this process, and Taylor, you mentioned previously that it helped you really understand that you weren't going to relive the memories. And I think that that's one of the really important parts of mental emotional release is that you don't have to relive the traumatic things or the mistakes that you made or the things that you wish you hadn't happened. I am not there to hear the story. Now, I will tell you that the therapist in me loves your story. I want to hear your story. I want to know because it's like a way that I get to know more about you. And so in my heart, I have to go, nope, that is not the purpose. The purpose is not to hear the story. The purpose is truly for the unconscious mind to bring it up, for the conscious mind to be aware of it, and then for us to move on to the next thing so that we can do the kind of healing work that we need and want to do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. I just appreciated, have another client that has referred a couple people to me for breakthrough sessions. And he talks to them about, he's like, listen, I know you don't know her, but like, would she really have you read the book if she was full of crap? Would she really have you read the book if she was just, wanting to take your money? No, she's having you read the book. So A, you understand your unconscious mind, and B, you do know what to expect. So, I mean, if she's screwing it up, you'll know. And that gets so many people because they're like, yeah, you're probably right. I don't think that somebody would do that. And so not only does it help you get your belief process up of like, okay, I have things coming up. I recognize that I need to work on some things in myself. I didn't realize that my unconscious mind works this way. The next part of that is now I know what mental emotional release looks like. And I also can trust that the person that's doing it knows what they're doing. So I think that that's a really big part of that. And when you do a breakthrough session, you choose an area of life that you want to do it in, and you choose one of 6 areas. It's spiritual, physical health, career, romantic relationships, friends, family, or personal growth and development. And one of the things that I feel like personal growth and development can mean so many different things to people, but it's really just about having healthy emotions and having like healthy thought life. So a lot of people, if they're coming in and they're like, I deal with anger, or I just like, I feel like I can't control my emotions, or I have PTSD, they're really going to fall under a personal growth and development like breakthrough, because it really is about having a healthy thought and emotion life. So we've sort of kind of set you up for leading up to this, why Taylor chose to do it, kind of what the pre-work looks like. And by the way, I think this book is one of the easiest reads in the history, of life. And I'm not saying that because I'm a PhD and have this really like high intellect that no one could ever like meet me there. No. Taylor, is this book easy to read?
Yes.
Yes, this book is easy to read. Most people can read it in, I mean, if you're really a reader, you can read it in a day. If you like to read or you enjoy reading, you can read it in, I think, a weekend, a couple of days. So anyways, I say that to say that it's not so full of all these like psychological jargon that you're like, what in the world am I reading? It's not one of those. So let's talk about the actual process of a breakthrough session. And Taylor, as we're doing a breakthrough session, really the first part of it is taking a detailed personal history. Now, again, you're not telling the story. I'm asking questions and you're answering kind of like bullet points almost, really. Sometimes the story is necessary. And I say the story like in a very abbreviated version of the story because I'm searching for what meaning was made or what limiting belief maybe may have embedded itself in that sort of situation. So, Taylor, can you just kind of talk about your own feelings as we were doing that detailed personal history?
Yes. So when we were prepping, I said the best way I can explain this part is like my unconscious is speaking and my conscious brain is sitting on a couch watching the show and kind of surprised at all the talking that the unconscious mind is doing. And I specifically remember going through one part of my history where there was some abuse experienced from an ex relationship. And she looked at me and she said, "How did you play a role in that?" And I think my eyes snapped to hers in like less than 2 milliseconds. She's my friend, love her. In that moment, I actually wanted to slap her. And full transparency, we're best friends now. So now you know the real deal.
That sometimes you want to hit your friend. That is the truth. That sometimes. And by the way, I just want to talk about this just for a second. And in my space, we talk about this as getting at cause. In our life, we are either at cause or at effect. If I'm at effect, that means I have absolutely zero control of my life, of what happened to me, of what I do with it. And by the way, bad things happen to people that we have absolutely zero control over what happened to us. However, we do have control over our response. And this is like deeply important because if I'm at effect, I have a victim stance and I cannot change anything that I am a victim to. This is part of, and I'm going to tell you the truth because you're my best friend. This is part of the reason I have such an issue lately with our culture. At least American culture can may be different in other places, but American culture is very, we praise victimhood. And if you are a victim, and I'm not saying again that bad things don't happen, that we had absolutely zero control over, but a victim says, I have no chance. I have no way to change this. I'm stuck. This is how it is. This is how it'll always be. This is how people are going to treat me. And if we stay in effect, we cannot change our life. And so that is why it is so important to get people to cause, because cause is empowering. Now, we may not like what we see when we're at cause, just like Taylor did not like the question that I asked her. But I also knew that I needed her to be at cause, because if she wasn't at cause for the pain that she was experiencing, and again, remember, what happened to her, she wasn't responsible for. But what she has done with it as a way that she's interacted with the world as a result, she was at cause for that. And so I needed to get her there, help her get there so she could be empowered to change it. That I'm not stuck. I'm not stuck believing this. I'm not stuck feeling this. And I say to people commonly, I think this is the least therapist-y part of this, because many times with clients, I'm like, yeah, I can't imagine what that's like, that thing happened to you. And so I'm giving a lot of empathy, but I can't stay at empathy with clients. And I think at some point, Taylor, I said to you, like, I can't imagine, or I don't know what that's like to have had that happen. But until you're at cause, we can't change it.
Yes. So, like she said, or like I said, I definitely wanted to slap her in that moment. And as she helped me work through it, it actually broke a dam, if you will, to a lot of other things that I had buried and put in my suitcase and decided we're just going to disassociate from that for now. And who cares what happens to it later? And it popped back up. So, ultimately, we went through all of these things, and I learned that while the abuse happened or this thing happened, ultimately what really happened is my brain made a bunch of meaning to all of these things that basically said, in order to have love, I have to do whatever so and so tells me to do, or be whatever so and so tells me to be. And if that causes conflict, then I have to be less so that there's no conflict and that person stays in my life. And she helped me break that down a little bit further, going deeper into cause and getting out of effect. And what my brain did with these things is it created this overall message of I'm not lovable. And I believed it. And I could see how having that belief triggered a lot of responses and behaviors that honestly I would say were my life's biggest regrets. So it was really starting to connect the dots as to, okay, now I understand why. And thankfully, we did not stay there.
Of course we don't. That's the whole purpose. We got to bring it up so we can get rid of it. And something that I think is really, really important is you have to recognize that a lot of times the conscious mind doesn't believe stuff, but the unconscious mind does. For example, embedded in my unconscious was that I'm not good enough. And I could give you 32 different reasons of why I'm awesome and that I am completely more than good enough. But I had a record, an unconscious story playing in my mind that I wasn't good enough. And so that was impacting the way I interacted with myself, with others. I even did a breakthrough yesterday, and the person had I'm not good enough also embedded in their unconscious. And it took us a hot minute to get to the place where it was like, yeah, that is showing up in every single place because that person would actually say they're really awesome, and because actually they are very awesome, but that was their conscious mind. It was their unconscious mind that was running this process, kind of sabotaging their relationships with family, with friends, with themselves, with career, all the things. So I say that to say that consciously you may go, I'm freaking awesome. But if you're stuck, if you're dealing with baggage, if things come up and you're like, what in the world? Where did that come from? Well, that's your unconscious mind going, hey, I made a meaning of this. And now here it is. And that's what we find out in the detailed personal history. So we know exactly what we need to get rid of when we get to the mental emotional release process. So, Taylor, why don't we talk some about the mental emotional release process? So we get rid of several different things. The first thing that we focus on is getting rid of negative emotions, and there's some standard ones that we get rid of, but if you have some that show up on repeat, personally you say a word or a feeling a lot, then we'll get rid of that too. But Taylor, can you talk about that process for you?
Yes. So I know one of the emotions that was on repeat in me was shame. Shame came up a lot, and shame is can be very crippling, and it masks itself pretty well, I think. And as we were going through this, she asked permission if I was ready to actually release that. And I thought that that was interesting at the time. And but looking back, I'm like, well, maybe if she didn't ask me that, I wouldn't have been ready to actually release that. Because when you've lived in shame for so long, it can feel comfortable, and calling it out may not feel the best. But when she asked me if I wanted to release that, I was like, oh my God, yes, get rid of this, please, right now. I never want to have to deal with this again. And because I was really in a place where I was so fed up with feeling this way, I was willing to do everything possible to change my situation and become who I wanted to be and live the life I wanted to be. So, releasing these negative emotions, especially shame, I was surprised at how easy that came for me. I know that that may not be common, and I think you could speak more to
Yeah,
that.
some people, everybody's experience is so different. Some people travel through their timeline so fast. Others, it takes them longer. Sometimes they feel blocked or stuck as they're moving through their timeline. No big deal. I know exactly what to do, and so then we get unstuck and we move back through. So Taylor's experience, at least those were more easy, but for some people it really is, and for others it's not. And but when I say not easy, it doesn't mean not impossible. It's just, hey, this took longer than 1, 2, 3.
Yes.
Yeah.
And because shame came up multiple times, we did release it twice. So definitely not trying to say it's a one shot. you're done. It's easy, easy peasy. I was just surprised at how ready I was to let it all go. And it was interesting how when she has you assume certain places in your timeline, which when you do your breakthrough, you'll understand that more. Or if you just read the book, you'll understand that more. How I could see what was happening, the decisions that were made, and the event, but the weight of the feeling was no longer there. And it felt like, yeah, okay, so yeah, that thing happened, but I don't have this heaviness of shame or sadness that that thing actually happened.
Well, and that's I sort of joke that this isn't like a memory erasing process. This is simply a place where we remove the charge on stuff. So you can look back in your history and go, yeah, that did happen in my life. I just don't carry the weight of that. I don't carry the pain of that, the sadness, the anger, the fear, whatever it was, the meanings that were made. And by the way, this might be surprising to you, but our brain is really forming mostly until we're 7. Like the really key things, the meanings that we're making of our life, those happen at very young age. And by the way, I don't know about you, if you have little people, you were once little people, but my 4-year-old makes like bizarre meanings of things and what life means. And so if something bad happens, a lot of times it's very easy for people, little people, to internalize that's about me. It's my fault. I did that thing. It's because I'm bad. Whatever it is, little people make those meanings. And then unknowingly, not purposely, we carry those things through our life. And then those things that we're carrying actually dictate unconsciously how we're interacting with people. And then what's fascinating is the way that we interact with people sort of necessitates, it begets that we get more and more of that. It's like, man, I don't believe that there's any good men out there, so I don't meet any good men. And part of that has to do with, one, the belief that you're putting out there, but also unconsciously the way that you're interacting with the world and those around you and the things that you're saying. And so it's just really fascinating. So we have to recognize that we make these little meanings in our unconscious mind as typically little people. Sometimes we carry things like that happened well before we even existed in the world. And which might seem very weird to some of you listening, but like, I won't even go down that rabbit trail. I could talk about that for a while. So you just think about, we're carrying stuff and then we're interacting in our life based on that. So with Taylor, we got rid of some of, not some, all of those negative emotions. We got rid of some limiting beliefs. Taylor, can you just talk a little bit more about even getting rid of limiting beliefs?
Yes, so that was a lot harder, in my opinion and in my experience, than it was to release the emotions, because I realized how all these things were really tied and webbed together. And it gets back to this root, yet there's this massive spider web. So it was unwinding these things of, I I'm the problem. I'm not lovable. I'm only worth what someone produces. I have to be less in order to not be abandoned. And it's my responsibility to keep everybody around me happy. And when it came to relationships,
BS.
yes. And it came to relationships, it was, how do I keep you? Not what do I want? Is this even a relationship that I want? And my whole value was, I was putting in the hands of other people's opinions and reading their emotions as a reflection of my own value.
What an exhausting life. And maybe some of our listeners, because I think women too also tend to caretake more than men, not that men don't, but just going like, wow, I do in fact make everybody else's feelings, life, whatever, my responsibility. And that's exhausting. So we get rid of negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and then we align some parts. And I sort of joke about this. It's funny to me. It's not funny, but it's funny to me that this part is. I say difficult. It's like really, it's not, but like it can be frustrating because you're looking for the highest intention in these separate parts, and they actually don't have the same highest intention because they're a part of the whole with the whole of you, but they're going about it in different ways. And so, anyways, it can be very irritating for people when I keep asking a question on repeat of like, I already gave you that answer. And so, anyways, I say that to say parts, but aligning your parts is important rather than them being disjointed. A part of me is like this and a part of me is like this. No, how do they actually merge into the whole? So, Taylor, can you talk some about that?
Yes, she was not kidding when she said this is often the most frustrating part. She does warn you at the beginning that if she asks you a question over and over again, there's a reason. So I knew why she was asking me this over and over again, because she was trying to get deeper.
Soliciting your unconscious.
Yes. Um, and what it's crazy to kind of explain, but this war that was going on inside of my head, it was like it became tangible. It came out of me. One side was represented in one hand, the other side was represented in the other. And ultimately, we got to this understanding in this place of both sides want the same exact thing. They want to be heard, they want to be loved. And it's really, they just have two different ways of going about it, but the intention, the goal is still the same. And that was really crazy to think, because you think that a war, this is a enemy, this is an ally, I have to pick sides, and no, we want unity. And it was crazy to see that.
It's crazy to watch. I mean, I've done this myself multiple times. I have aligned some parts, and so recognizing that I've had these two parts that are competing, but really they want the same thing. And so it's so powerful to recognize that sometimes in our own hearts and in our own minds and even in our body, things get disjointed. But what's amazing is that we were created. God created us where to come into alignment. And so our unconscious mind actually wants us to heal. It's just been operating in meanings that it's made, but it wants us to heal. So aligning those parts helps us be congruent and whole within ourself. Something else that is not necessarily a standard part of MER, it's not MER, it's a different thing, but it is something that I utilize, which is called Ho'oponopono. And if you're listening, you're like, wait, what did you just say? Ho'oponopono. And it is a Hawaiian forgiveness process. And it means to make right with self, to make right with others. And anyways, in short, like you fill yourself with light. God fills you with light. You fill whoever it is that you've harmed with light. You say, I forgive you. Will you forgive me? And the reason that you even say it that way, the reason that you even structure it that way is because forgiveness is a bi-directional process. Saying, will you forgive me versus I'm sorry is one direction. Will you forgive me? Ask for something in return. So it closes that loop. So you ask for forgiveness. And then from that place, you say things to the person that you need to say to them. They can be alive or not. It doesn't matter, but you say the things that you need to say, and you're full of light. This isn't coming from a place of rage or anger or hatred. It's truly a place of forgiveness because you're both standing in light. Taylor, can you talk about this process for you just a little bit?
This process always makes me smile because my husband says it's the Hawaiian thing, because he always mispronounces it. So it always makes me smile when we talk about it. But as she said, you get these people on your stage that you need to ask forgiveness for, or forgive yourself as well. And I was surprised at how big my stage was. Don't
Meaning the amount of people that she needed to forgive.
Yes. Yes. This process opened up how much I'd been holding on from the people that were in my life, that had left my life, or even just in business arenas. I found that forgiving myself was the hardest one of all. It took the longest to fill with light. That wasn't surprising to me, to be honest. I tend to be harder on myself than other people. And I was very relieved and like felt this weight lifted when my whole self was actually filled completely with light. And that was a very freeing experience. I can't imagine not having that part of the process, because if you leave still holding on to things from people, that's not going to help you in the long run. So it was just very much like I had all these puppets, or these puppeteers got strings attached to me, playing a role in how I respond to people, how I interact with the world, and they're just cut off, and I have no ill will towards them, and I get to just walk away free.
It's the great explanation. And so what's really neat about the process of Ho'oponopono is you just really cut those energetic connections between people, between yourself and others. And by the way, we have those. Doesn't really, I want you to hear me. It doesn't matter what you believe. By the way, Taylor and I, our bodies, I mean, if you break us down to the lowest possible size, we're made of light, and so the energy is a part of that, and the way that we connect with each other. And so we have that with everybody, and like how amazing that we can clean that out and really interact with people in a new way every day. So Ho'oponopono isn't, and I want to say this, so much of the skills that you learn, MER, the forgiveness process, aligning parts, all of these things, this is stuff that you can use outside of session, outside of our breakthrough. I think you really just learn what it looks like and you learn how to do it, but you're able to do it outside. So it's not just, all right, well, the only time I can heal myself or get some healing is in this part of the session. No, you can do this anytime. So that's one of the things too that's so important to me. So Taylor, can you just talk about kind of quickly what it was like to just find out what your values were like in the area of personal growth and development, because that was your breakthrough area.
So when you think of personal growth and development, when you tell someone you value that, yeah, I value growing, I value being a better person, and that's really it. You're not really asked anything besides that. So diving into what you value when it comes to those areas, it was really eye-opening, and it also helped me understand why maybe some growth or personal development things didn't actually fill me. I wasn't fulfilled by them. They didn't have an effect. And I got to learn kind of like my checklist, like my checks and balances of how I can decipher what's good versus what's best for me. And I got to put in very explicit detail, like I value it being a holistic ordeal for me. It needs to benefit and grow my heart, my body, my mind, my relationships. And it's not at conflict with the things that I'm actually doing, and it brings life to me. It's not an energy drainer.
So it's helped you have more confidence in yourself and the things that you do, just really learning to align your values, know who you are. Pre-baggage, people believe that they should do a lot of certain things, or they should be certain ways, or like I even think about a recent breakthrough I did that was a romantic relationships, and how high attraction and sex was on that list pre-breakthrough. And then after that, it was still on the list, but it was not at the very, so high at the top. And so when we recognize not only our values, but the way that we, the order that they're in. So it's like, yeah, is sex important in a relationship? Abso-stinking-lutely. Is it the most important thing? No. Is it probably in the top 3? No. But does it need to be up there? Yes, because it is so important in the relationship that you have with a partner. So Taylor, as we sort of round out the breakthrough session process itself, before we kind of talk about what the ultimate result was, what you created, we did all the release work, we did all the things, we found your values, we then created an outcome. Can you just talk about the process for you of creating an outcome that you wanted to have in your life?
We hear a lot of things that we hear ourselves say it, our partners say it, whatever. A lot of our lists are filled with things that we don't want. And being almost 30, I can actually say for the first time in my life, I am confident and I have absolute clarity on what it is I do want for my life. And it's way more life-giving and fulfilling than that stupid list of all the things I just didn't want.
I love that. So you're actually able to see with full clarity what you do want in your life. And then we create goals around that of like, all right, this is what I want. And by the way, this is what you want without baggage. Because once we clear out the baggage, you can see it full, like just so clear. So then a part of this is we go through all the things that you said and we make sure that all of the charge on the events, the emotions, the beliefs, all of that nonsense, that 4-letter word that starts with S, is gone. We make sure it's all gone. And it was all gone.
Yes.
And then you've already told me all the ways that you would know that this process worked. And then we met all of the ways that you would know that this process worked. Can you just talk about that for a second?
I knew that this process would work if I would feel peace. I would feel confident in who I am. I would be ready to set boundaries. And I know I had like 10 other things on that list. And one by one, they were just checked off. And I still feel so much joy knowing I have peace. I have confidence. I know that I am worth more than I could ever produce. And I am lovable.
Heck yes, you are. So we met all the things, all the ways that she knew that this would work. And she told me it wasn't things that I made up for her. It wasn't, it would be good if you felt this way. No, it was what she told me. So I think that that's really important is you're the one deciding how this will look and how you'll know that it works. So then breakthrough session's over. We've done all the things. We've checked in. We've made sure everything is working how it's supposed to work. And by the way, sometimes, after you do a breakthrough session, some other stuff comes up because unconscious mind is like, hey, cool. You want to heal? I'm going to give you other healing opportunities. It's amazing. And so sometimes there's some stuff that still bubbles up. And I say bubbles because it's like not a big thing. It just bubbles up a little bit and then we do the thing and like we blow that out too. And all is well. And so Taylor, can you just talk about the result of you did this breakthrough session, you spent time, you spent money, you invested in this, in yourself. What was the result for you?
So I got to, and I'm continuing to get to meet the real me. I'm almost 30 and being able to meet the real me without baggage, without stifling, without constant insecurity or being the doormat or the punching bag for whoever. It's fulfilling, it's freedom, it's peace. And I will say the peace was a little bit weird at first because when you're used to a lot of conflict and you're used to the war in your brain and inside, the peace can feel a little discomforting, but I just trusted it and it stayed. It's not this breakthrough high that you go home and a few days it wears off. Like you actually get to live in this now. And my motive for relationships has completely transformed from how do I keep you to what do I want? And I care about what I want. And when someone's having a bad day, I still care, but it's not my problem. It's not my responsibility to fix it. And when I realized the weight that I was putting on myself to make everyone around me happy and really being like, that's a you problem. Like I care. Let me know how I can help, but that's not a me problem. So much freedom. And it's helped me set boundaries and hold boundaries, which, like I said, I identified a little bit as a punching bag. It's hard to set boundaries when you're being the punching bag for people and owning their feelings and their concerns. You hold those boundaries and it's so empowering. And it's easier to do when you believe you're actually valuable. And I had more physical responses too. Like I was doing some gut systems before I started the breakthrough session for just health reasons. And I was seeing 0 results on it. After the breakthrough, I'm seeing results every single day in my actual physical health. This stuff affects every area of your life. And I believe it more and more as my body changes, as I feel better. I have energy mentally, emotionally, and physically. I don't have brain fog. I don't negotiate my needs anymore. Like, I own my needs. I stand up for my needs. I meet my needs. I'm not the back burner anymore. And
Y'all, I've totally been wanting to find a reason to use that sound effect. And I just did. Sorry, me and Taylor totally laughed. But that's how I feel on the inside. And that truly is how I feel. Like, as I start to watch people just break stuff off and break stuff off and break stuff off, I'm like, I get more and more energized as the day goes on. Cause I'm like, freaking yes! Like I am so excited, and I know I just yelled into the mic, and I'm really sorry about that. But I need you to understand that's how I feel watching it happen, going, oh my gosh, you're not going to carry this anymore, and you're not going to carry that anymore. And like, praise God, you're not going to carry that anymore. Taylor, what advice would you give people about a breakthrough session if they're interested, or if they're committed? They're like, I'm in. What advice would you give them?
freaking do it. In all seriousness, everyone has baggage, but that doesn't mean something's wrong with you. Every single person has baggage. I don't care how much personal development you've done. I'm glad you've done it. You still need this. Get it. You are about to embark on the best life you could ever live when you do a breakthrough session. It's the best investment you'll make in yourself. And this isn't fluff. This isn't crap. Like, you've heard her story. You're hearing mine. They're on her website. There's a bunch of testimonials from other people doing this. You got to do it. Don't hold back your investment into yourself out of whatever your baggage is saying to you. Ignore your baggage for half a second, long enough to say, yes, Brittany, I'm doing this. When is my session? Here's my money. I'm investing in me. And she's not scamming you. Like, you get to live this stuff out. This is not scripted. She didn't tell me what to say. She doesn't tell you what your issues are. She doesn't speak for you at all during this process. You're really uncovering the crap that's been holding you back.
I did not prep Taylor for this question, so I want you to be like 100% honest.
Okay.
This is a weird question for me to ask too, by the way.
Okay.
But Taylor, what is it like to work with me? What's your experience of me as I'm doing that breakthrough session with you?
Working with you through the breakthrough session is easy, honestly. You can hear things like it's simple, but it's not easy. It genuinely is easy. You spent a lot of time consistently throughout reestablishing rapport, making sure that I felt safe, that my unconscious was constantly flowing. And there were checkpoints where you would specifically check in on me, and we're starting to feel too much of the emotions in the story because my brain was trying to relive the moments through the timeline. You'd pull me back. You very much were just right there the whole time. And like, when stuff bothered me and I said a bad word, which I won't say on this podcast, you were like, yeah, that I agree. Like, that's crappy. I mean, we didn't say those words, but I think that added more to the authenticity of who you are, meeting me where I am. And you stayed excited for me throughout the whole process, knowing all the things that were about to break off. So I don't think you could have made it any more of a comfortable, easy process, to be honest.
I feel warm. I feel warm hearing you say that. So, best friends that are listening, I just want to encourage you to ask yourself, what area of life do you need to break through? And I'm not asking you that and that you need to come do it with me. That's not what I'm saying. I mean, if you do, awesome. I want to help you live free. But where do you need to break through in your life? What have you been holding on to that you need to just say, I'm done with this. I'm done with this nonsense. I'm done with this. This is not who I am. And really begin to walk out who God created you to be ultimately. So I just really want you to think through those things. Thank you for taking the time to just be with me and Taylor today as we just shared what this process was like. I know people feel really curious. I talk about them a lot. So I really just wanted to have somebody else walk you through what it looks like for them and their experience of it. So you can even know that it's not just me trying to sell you on something, that it truly is a life-changing process. So I just want to say thank you, best friend. You mean a lot to me. I'm so grateful that you continue to show up, that you continue to hang out with me, that you grab your coffee, snug up in your blanket, you put me in your car with you, wherever we're at, and we hang out. And I think that's the really beautiful thing about best friends is that you just hang out wherever you are and you pick up wherever you left off. And so I'm going to continue to share my friends with you, people that I think can help you, have valuable things to share with you. And so, anyways, I look forward to our next time together. And until then, I I will. By the way, my little like internal 7-year-old just came out because I was like, "What am I gonna say? I'll smell you later." Like that's what just came to my head. So, anyways, I'm not gonna smell you later, but Taylor just smelled me. Thank you. I did bathe, so excellent. Anyways, for with all the nonsense, we will see you later. Talk to you later. Bye.